Hello and welcome back to the MMA Bar. Today we're going to discuss the inspiring story of Glover Texeira, his journey to being UFC champion at 42, and everything surrounding his MMA career and lifestyle. Glover Texeira earned a victory lap. 2 days after his 42nd birthday last October, the Brazilian veteran shocked the world with a second-round submission of Jan Blachowicz that earned him the UFC light heavyweight title more than 7 years after his first crack at the crown against Jon Jones in 2014. It was the feel-good story of the year, or most years for that matter, but Teixeira wasn't interested in touring the world with his new belt or asking for a less dangerous foe for his first title defense. But even though he lost the belt to Jiri Prochazka in his last fight at UFC 275, overcoming hurdles in the cage seems easy compared to what Glover Texeira had to overcome to fulfill the American dream. He is the second oldest UFC champion in history behind Randy Couture and the oldest first-time champion in UFC history. He is number 1 in the UFC light heavyweight rankings, and he is number 14 in the UFC men's pound-for-pound rankings. Teixeira's journey to the top was nearly as long and difficult as his first trip to the US as a teenager when he snuck across the border at Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego. 13 years ago, Glover Texeira left his hometown of Sobralia, Brazil, and headed for the US. When he left, he made a promise to himself to return to his home country as a UFC champion. Teixeira was one of many kids from the small Brazil town of Sobralia who dreamed about leaving in pursuit of a better life in the US. The area became infamous in Brazil for an exodus of people trying to enter the US illegally, and Teixeira eventually joined the pack. We had no internet connection back then. We had nothing, so we could only imagine how the United States looked like. Teixeira said, "It was every kid's dream. No one from Sobralia even tried to get a visa. We had guides that would take us there through Mexico. Most of them came back after 3 or 4 years and bought cars or houses as soon as they returned." Teixeira decided to give it a try when he was just a 19-year-old teenager. It was a difficult journey that took 43 days and saw him held captive until the people who helped him cross were paid. He only ate a few meals during that time, mostly bread and beans. Discussing his journey, he said, "It's tense. It took me 43 days to get here. Everybody knows how dangerous it is to cross the Mexican border. People die, people get arrested, tortured. So my mother was very concerned, but also hopeful that her son was going after his dream, going after a better life." Teixeira said the smugglers had offered every single one of the Sobralian men a chance to do the illegal border crossing for free. All they had to do was to carry a backpack with them and deliver it to a person in San Diego, but Teixeira declined the offer. Upon his arrival in San Diego, he immediately took a commercial flight to Boston and then left for Connecticut, where he lives to this day in Danbury. 23 years later, Teixeira doesn't advise people to take the same path as he did. He admits he paid a huge price for years to come. His first years as an illegal immigrant in the US were good though. The Teixeira family never expected Glover to stay for so long, but he fell in love with the country, and as soon as he learned he could get paid $10 an hour to shovel snow from the sidewalks. Unlike most other Brazilian kids, Teixeira hated soccer. He loved watching athletes train and hoped to one day get paid to train his body in the same way, but seeing boxing superstar Mike Tyson knock people out in vicious fashion caught his attention. After earning his first American dollars, Teixeira enlisted at a boxing gym to learn how to punch people in the face. Days later, he was asked by a friend to try his luck in an arm wrestling tournament. Little did he know that he was signing up for a tough man contest. Teixeira worked all day as a carpenter before finding out he was scheduled to compete in an amateur boxing match that same night. Somehow, it worked out. Teixeira beat a couple of tomato cans in his debut in the ring, then returned the next day for the semi-final. Unfortunately, he lost the final by corner stoppage. Though he may have been broken by his first attempt in combat sports, Teixeira returned to the gym, eager to work even harder to win the next Tough Man contest. But then a friend approached him with a better idea. That idea was the UFC. Teixeira had no idea what the Ultimate Fighting Championship even was in those days, so he sat down in front of a TV and watched a VHS tape of the first 3 events. He was hooked right away. Teixeira signed up for jiu-jitsu classes the next morning and immediately began training with a purple belt in Danbury. 6 months later, and not yet ready for the task, Teixeira nonetheless convinced his coach to find him a fight. Teixeira was quickly booked against Eric Schwartz, a teammate of Chuck Liddell's at WEC 3. Teixeira was humbled in his MMA debut, but did enough to impress Schwartz coach John Hackelman. Teixeira was still dealing with the aftermath of the beating when Hackelman stopped by to congratulate him for his performance, saying he had never seen someone endure the punishment Schwartz dealt him and continue to march forward. When Hackelman invited him to be a part of Liddell's camp at the pit for the American's upcoming UFC fight, Teixeira didn't think twice, and that's when his life began to change. The Brazilian prospect won 4 of his next 5 fights before being paired up against Ramos Sokoju. Teixeira won by first-round knockout. Teixeira knew that his career couldn't evolve from just competing on tribal lands until he figured out his legal status in the US. And a lawyer said his best chance at getting a visa was by going back to Brazil and writing a letter to the consulate asking for forgiveness. From these victories, Chuck Liddell believed in him and convinced UFC President Dana White to take a chance on him. Teixeira left the US, a country he'd quickly grown to love, and returned to Brazil hoping to get to the US legally so he could fight in the UFC. It was a long, difficult process and didn't end until US Senator Chris Murphy intervened to help. Teixeira got his visa at the end of 2011, debuted in the UFC in 2012, and has been a mainstay in the light heavyweight division ever since. In a span of 16 months, he defeated Kyle Kingsbury by submission, Fabio Maldonado by TKO, Rampage Jackson by decision, James Tijuana by submission, and Ryan Bader by KO. That earned him a shot at the belt. In April of 2014, he fought John Jones for the light heavyweight championship but lost by unanimous decision. Now being in his mid-30s, many around the sport expected him to move towards retirement. But Teixeira kept fighting and perfecting the way he fought and trained. 7 years after his loss to Jones, he got a second shot at the light heavyweight title after going undefeated in his previous 6 fights. At 42 years old, Teixeira took on the light heavyweight champion of the world in a packed arena in Abu Dhabi at UFC 267. It took only 2 rounds before Teixeira submitted his opponent Jan Blachowicz via a rear naked choke, making him the second oldest fighter to ever win a title and the oldest first-time victor. In a post-fight interview, Teixeira encouraged others not to give up. "Never give up on your dreams," he said. "No matter what people say, don't listen to them. They're gonna put you down. Don't listen to those negative people. Believe in yourself." For his first title defense, Teixeira faced Jiri Prochazka at UFC 275 on June 11. The event happened at the Singapore Stadium in Singapore. Originally, there was a discussion about the possibility of the fight taking place in Teixeira's home country of Brazil. After the first 4 rounds, he was well on his way to doing so despite some questionable mistakes such as going for a standing guillotine when he had his bow rocked. In the final minute of the back-and-forth fight, Teixeira gave Prochazka enough daylight to sink in a rear naked choke that forced him to tap for the first time in his professional MMA career. Despite the setback, the longtime veteran is determined to keep going. "We got hit a little bit there, but I gave my best in this fight. But the hand came back in the neck, I was very tired, and I think I didn't believe in the submission. I should have turned, but now it's too late to cry over spilled milk. Live by the sword, die by the sword. I gave my best and it wasn't enough. But let's go for the next one. Thank you to all of you that root for me for the support. I'm fine, just a few cuts, but let's go." Teixeira proved that he can still hang with the best at 42 years of age. He had the highly touted Jiri Prochazka, who is 13 years younger than him, on the ropes and was well on his way to his first ever title defense. Glover Texeira says he is not thinking about retirement as he eyes a rematch with Jiri Prochazka. Since their fight at UFC 275, both men have talked about a potential rematch, and Teixeira believes the rematch will be a massive pay-per-view success. As for what realistically could be next for the Brazilian bomber, as odd as it may sound, a rematch against Jan Blachowicz could be in order. Before the bout with Prochazka, Teixeira admittedly liked the idea of defending the belt and then defending one final time in November 2022 at Madison Square Garden in New York City, retiring afterward. With plans having changed, a similar idea sounds nice to Teixeira, as he hopes to win back the title, defend, and maybe retire. But as of right now, he isn't thinking about directly retiring at all. Thank you for watching this video. That's all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.